Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Blog on Everything, your go to source for breaking down the biggest moves in football for FC Barcelona. Yeah, not just all of football, just Barca, okay? Today, we're diving deep into one of the most intriguing goalkeeper transfers in recent memory for us culés. Of course, because Barcelona pulled the trigger on a massive 25 million move for Joan Garcia from their city rivals Espanyol. I say massive, but by modern day standards, bit of a bargain considering his talent levels and how much, just look at how much Arsenal paid for David Raya, right? I mean, goalkeepers are not cheap. At 24 years old, Garcia is now officially a Barca player with a contract running until 2031. But here's the million euro question, if you will. Should I say 25 million euro question at that? Is this signing the one that finally solves Barcelona's issues, would say, in between the sticks? I won't overblow it, out of proportion and call it a crisis or anything like that. But, is this what that's going to be? That's basically what we're going to be talking about here. So, let's go ahead and break it down. First, we'll have to look at who Joan Garcia actually is. Because if you're not following La Liga closely, and if you don't really follow one of the, like the really big teams in the Premier League, because, they have been watching him, this is a name that might be new to you. Joan Garcia is a 24-year-old Spanish goalkeeper born in Catalonia, specifically in Sallent. I don't know if it's pronounced Sallent or Salient, being that sometimes Catalan and Spanish don't behave the same. Okay, just outside Barcelona. And he's really a local boy in a way for Barcelona. It's a bit of a homecoming. I mean, he did grow up as a Barcelona fan. We've seen the pictures by now. At least Barca fans, we've all seen the pictures. Garcia, though, spent his entire youth career at Espanyol and not Barcelona's vaunted La Masia. He worked his way up through the Espanyol Academy, and he's been with them since a relatively young age, about 12 or so. So close to 12 years, maybe 13 years that he has been in that Espanyol Academy. And just this past season, he ended up being absolutely instrumental in keeping Espanyol in La Liga after he was very instrumental in bringing Espanyol up to La Liga. So, he didn't just bring them up, but he kept them up as well, you could argue. And, well, we're talking about a goalkeeper who did play all league games for Espanyol, right? 38 league games. So he's not going to be a stranger to starting multiple matches in a season. Joan Garcia helped Espanyol secure survival on the final day of the season, and along the way, he put in some absolutely world-class performances. The standout performance arguably is going to be in that 1-0 victory over Real Madrid back in February, where he was simply unbeatable for Real. And in some ways, I guess he really played a huge role in Barcelona winning La Liga, now that you think about it. So, this is definitely his just rewards. He deserves to be getting part of that Barcelona cake. Okay, so the bottom line here is this isn't some unknown quantity that we're talking about here in Joan Garcia, because he has been turning heads all season, and Barcelona, just like many other teams, including Real Madrid, were watching him very, very closely. And talking about watching closely, let's take just, a bit of a closer look at the numbers that are involved here, because this deal is, fascinating from a business perspective. Barcelona did activate a clause for 20 million euros, that Joan Garcia had in his Espanyol contract. And, it might not sound like Neymar money, which we all remember just how much Barcelona had spent on Neymar. And it's definitely not, like I just pointed out, Kepa or David Raya levels of money, not even Thibaut Courtois levels of money. But it's, I think, very comparable to the amount of money that Barcelona paid for Marc Andre Ter Stegen back in 2015, which is, like I said, like there's some parallels here. We're going to get back to more of that, talking about him, talking about Ter Stegen, talking about what's going on here with Barcelona. But the other numbers to keep in mind is Barca locked him down with a 6-year contract, taking him through to 2031 which is going to be earning him around about 5 million euros a year. So that's the reason why, all in all, Barca had to pay like 25, because, there's a bit that goes, you have to go a bit over the release clause amount. You see that as well with Nico Williams, should that deal go through. Now, what's really interesting here, of course, for Barca is the timing of this deal. I mean, they did get it done very quickly and, quite quietly. I mean, for us Barca fans, we've known about this deal being basically, done and dusted since about the first week of June, and it's not something that we're used to seeing with Barcelona, okay? A deal getting done in around about 1 week, the story going from he prefers Premier League teams, this, that, to all of a sudden, boom, Barca are paying the release clause and Garcia is signing contracts with Barcelona. But here's what makes this transfer even more intriguing. Barca didn't just beat out clubs to his signature, who are like Espanyol level or, Villarreal level or Athletic Bilbao level. They had some serious competition. Arsenal were reportedly very interested in him, seeing him as a potential replacement for Aaron Ramsdale. Real Madrid, like I had mentioned as well, saw him as a very, very good signing to have as a backup to Thibaut Courtois. But I think the fact that Garcia chose Barcelona over a Premier League move with all of the riches that come, with those moves, and, over finishing second at Arsenal, it tells you something about his ambitions and, his desire to play, which is probably what kept him from going to play second fiddle at Real Madrid, because said desire to play is what was quite pivotal for Barca signing Joan Garcia, because Barca made him some promises, and those are promises that are going to affect a certain German who went to Turkey to revive his hairline. Yes, of course, talking about Marc Andre Ter Stegen, and I guess that's the best segue really to what is the elephant in the room, Marc Andre Ter Stegen. For years now, 10 years to be specific, for years now, about 9 years to be specific, Ter Stegen has been Barcelona's undisputed number one. And for the most part of that time, I would say he's been a fantastic servant to the club. But let's be honest, there have been questions about his consistency, especially in big matches. And Barcelona clearly feel that, with all of the injuries he's had, he's just no longer at the level that they need if they're going to, succeed, especially at, these seriously high levels of competition that, Flicky and Laporta and this team and this fan base that we want to see Barcelona at. So Garcia isn't coming to Barcelona to sit on the bench. No, Barcelona gave him guarantees that he would be the first choice goalkeeper. And I mean, look, you don't pay as much as 25 million for a backup keeper, right? I mean, those you probably pay just about 10 or 15, something way less than that. So this signing sends a clear message that Barca, of course, are ready to move on from the Ter Stegen era, or at the very least, they're putting serious pressure on him to find his way out, which really hasn't been, it hasn't been hidden, right? I mean, the club hasn't said it to him outright, which you could argue maybe that would have been the best approach, but they've kind of been hinting at it, they've been, playing or with the idea, I would say, through the media, like, how Spanish teams do sometimes. I don't really like it. Should have just gone to him directly, because, there isn't really a question of whether or not Garcia will walk straight into the team, whether or not Hansi Flick will ease him in, because he's here to start. And it's coming almost full circle now for Ter Stegen, because, they say if you live by the sword, you die by the sword. And about 9 years ago, Ter Stegen went to Barcelona and he said, I'm ready to be a starter over Claudio Bravo. So you either make me the starter or I'm going to Man City. Barca, of course, yielded to the pressure from Ter Stegen, and Claudio Bravo instead went to Man City, instead of Ter Stegen. And this is low-key what's happened here with Ter Stegen as well, except it's not Joan Garcia who's come to Barca to tell them that, make me a starter and all of that stuff. No, it's Barca themselves coming to Ter Stegen and say, hey, there's this new guy coming in and he is going to be the starter. But what exactly would it mean for him to be the starter? That's a good question, which, does mean I have to, for a few moments here, just, let's put on those tactical analysis hats that we have just tucked away, because the season is over at the moment. But let's put them out, brush off that dust. And look, let's talk what Garcia brings to Barcelona tactically, because this is where it starts to get interesting, in my opinion. All right? He is a very modern goalkeeper in every sense of the word, Joan Garcia, that is, because he's comfortable with the ball at his feet, which is, of course, like non-negotiable if you're going to be a Barcelona starting goalkeeper in 2025. Okay, under Hansi Flick, Barca want their goalkeeper to be kind of like that extra player out on the field, and also to be very confident coming out of his box, It needs to sweep, and so that means the keeper needs to be athletic. You need to have good mobility, something which, if you remember the match against Villarreal, Ter Stegen didn't really show too much of. I think the reason why these days he's so reluctant to leave his line is because he knows it doesn't have that speed anymore to get to the ball before the attack. It's natural, it happens. But what's impressed me most about Garcia this season, though, if we, move away from all of that sweeping and ball playing, it has to be the shot stopping ability. He's got incredible reflexes and very good positioning. Whenever you see a goalkeeper finds himself, or rather the shot always seems to be straight down the goalkeeper's throat, it usually tells you something about his ability in as far as positioning is concerned. But on top of all of that, he's also shown that he can make clutch saves when they're needed to be made. We've mentioned already the match against Real Madrid. We can talk about matches that Espanyol had as well against the likes of Real Betis. And of course, the last few rounds of La Liga action where Espanyol were able to get some points because of the saves that he was making. On top of that as well, we can talk about his build. I mean, height-wise, he's got good presence in the box without necessarily being, a big old tree like Thibaut Courtois is, but he's definitely not smaller than Szczesny by much. Unlike Ter Stegen, who is barely 6 foot, he's 6'3", unlike Ter Stegen, like I said. So he's at least going to be able to command his box. And like I said, he's mobile, quick off his line, and shows excellent decision-making under pressure. These are all qualities that I think Barcelona need desperately, especially in some of those biggest moments where we've seen the defense crumble and you're hoping the goalkeeper could bail us out, but that doesn't happen. So here's the real test, though. Can he handle the pressure of playing for Barca? Espanyol and Barca are, of course, different worlds entirely, worlds apart from each other. At Espanyol, a good save gets you applause. At Barcelona, anything less than perfection gets you criticized, gets you memed online. All of a sudden, you're Ter-static, you're Ter-statue. The mental side of this transition is going to be crucial for Joan Garcia. Although I feel like the fact that he had the mettle to move from Espanyol to Barca does somehow already speak to some of the mental strength that he possesses, or at least it tells you something about how he views himself in terms of, being able to roll with the punches. A bigger picture, though, here for me, if we step away, from Joan Garcia as the individual, the bigger picture for me is that this signing tells us something important about Barcelona's current transfer strategy, and I would say current football administration team. They are, first of all, definitely prioritizing young, hungry players who can grow with the club. Garcia at 24 fits perfectly into that profile. By 2031, when his contract expires, he'll still only be about 30, which is round about the prime years for a goalkeeper, right? This also shows Barcelona are serious about competing at the highest level because they saw a weakness in their team, and it's somebody who's been at this club for a decade and is the club captain, and they still said, you know what, that guy needs to go, and we need to refresh. We need hunger. We need somebody who hasn't yet done it all and who wants to do it. So the domestic rivalry angle, of course, adds another layer to this story. I'm talking, of course, about Espanyol. I'm talking also about Real Madrid, who are trying to sign this guy, and Barcelona were able to get him. But, that's the kind of move that will either make Garcia, in my opinion, a club legend, or end up putting enormous pressure on him to succeed. The fact that, you came from Espanyol, and, that first Catalan derby at the Coneo Prat, that's going to be what tells us, who he is, I feel, as a player. So I guess I should probably give my predictions and my final thoughts. It's usually how these things go, right? I mean, where does this leave Barcelona? Well, I think that, obviously Garcia, like we've said, is definitely going to go in to be a starter. It could lead to Ter Stegen leaving this summer because, the club is banking on the fact that the World Cup is next summer, and if it's made clear to him that he will not be a first-team player, I mean, it's being rumored that it's being said, or rather reported, that Szczesny is going to be the backup keeper next season. So if that really turns out to be the case, then the club is hoping that Ter Stegen will move to a different club, and his motivation basically will be the World Cup, because we all know Julian Nagelsmann isn't going to pick Julian. I said it's Julian since he's German. Julian Nagelsmann is not going to pick Ter Stegen to be his number one if Ter Stegen isn't playing any football during the season. I mean, short term, Ter Stegen is probably done with Barcelona, and long term, this signing works out very well for Barca. Garcia has all the tools to succeed at this level, and the pressure, you hope, will bring out the best in him. The question isn't whether he's good enough, I think it's whether he will be able to translate, whether he can handle the weight of expectation that can come with wearing that Barcelona shirt, and how he's able to roll with the punches when the moments of criticism come, because hey, guess what? Even Victor Valdez had those moments at Barcelona. Even Lionel Messi had those moments at Barcelona. So, the question is, can you roll with the punches? So my prediction, Garcia will be undisputed number one for Barcelona, which, that's dumb. We already know that. It was said by Hansi Flick that he will be. But also, I think within about 3 or 4 years, we could see him grow into one of the leaders at this team, just because of how well he already commands that 18-yard box of his, and how well he'll be able to fit in with the likes of Eric Garcia's, your Pau Cubarsis, your Marc Casados, your Man Benaus, all the Catalan guys, the Lamines, all the La Masia Catalan guys. He's going to fit into that group pretty well, and I think this is exactly the kind of smart, forward-thinking signing Barcelona need to make if they want to compete with, the likes of Real Madrid at a continental level, and, reestablish a kind of dynasty like they had in that, 2008 to about 2015 period of time. If they want to replicate the kind of success they had that time, these are exactly the kind of moves and they need to make, including Nico, who I cannot wait to talk about in the next deep dive, hopefully after we sign him. But otherwise, that's all for today's deep dive into the Joan Garcia transfer. What do you think? Is this the signing that solves Barcelona's goalkeeper situation, or is this going to be a dud? Is Ter Stegen really going to claim his spot back like he believes? I don't know. Hit me up in the comment section. Let me know. And also on social media, you can hit up the Insta. You know what I'm saying? The handle is right there. You can see it. You can see it. It's Blaugrana _ dot everything. or dot underscore. I've forgotten which one it is, but it will be on the screen. Otherwise, I thank you for listening to Blog on Everything. It's been a minute, guys. I know, but I promise the reason why I've been away and why I've been quiet for so long is because I found something I'm going to call just a bit of a gem, because I'm going to be looking at some legends who have been forgotten, so kind of like how I did with the Horst Vane video, how we did with the Paco Cerulo video. We're going to get a few more of those, and this time it's focused on players who you might not know, but you really should. If you enjoyed this episode, though, make sure to subscribe and to, just leave a comment saying something nice, guys. The past month has been rough in terms of views, and it's not many that I'm getting. So if you just put a comment, leave a like. It really does help with the algorithm. As far as I can tell, my viewers don't get the notifications when I upload. So do turn on those notifications. And if you don't see the notifications, the next time you watch a video, please like it, and you'll probably start seeing the notifications again. Okay? All right. So we'll be back in a few days with more talk, analyzing some of the biggest moments in FC Barcelona's history, and of course the biggest moves Barcelona is still making in the transfer market. Until then, though, thank you all for tuning in. Have a great day, and Forza Barça.